So now you should have your ears finished. I love how this quilting technique and the fabric looks. You can't even see any stitches that I sewed it. I just love that technique. And then this is what it looks like on the back. And on the bottom I tucked all of the loose yarn ends inside, and that's about all of the cushion that I'll have inside there. Then you're just going to take your tapestry needle, and you want the same colored yarn, and if you left a long loose yarn end, then you have one for the front and one for the back. Now when you're sewing your ears on, I use the magic circle on top of the head as a landmark, and you want your ears to be in line with the magic circle. And I counted out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 rounds out, 5 to 6 rounds out, and placed the inner portion of the ear. And then from the eyes, from the white portion, let me just count the stitches. So here's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, 5 to 6 stitches. And then down here it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about 5 to 6 stitches. And then I'm about, looks like midline with the nose on this one for the ears. So however you place your ears, and this may line up a little differently depending on the eye style that you chose, but pretty close. And then however you place your ear on one side, it needs to be placed exactly the same on the opposite side. So make sure that your ears are symmetrical. You don't want one higher than the other. So here's one with the round eye, and I have again lined up with the magic circle, and I'm about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6 rounds for the inner portion of the ear, and about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 to 6 for the bottom portion of the ear. So it's the same thing that I did for this style of eye. Now with this style of yarn, you may need a DMC yarn threader to assist you. This one's really been worn down. You can see how I bent the hook, but it still works. And you just go through the eye of your tapestry needle or darning needle, and then take your yarn end that you're going to be sewing, just hook it, and then bring it back through the eye of the needle. And then you're ready to sew the ear in place. I usually sew the front portion of the ear first. And then you're going to find your magic circle on top of the head and count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 to 6. And then that's the inner portion. And you only want to sew, let's see if I have this right. Yep, I've got the wrong end. So that will be on the back. I'm going to get this front portion for sewing. So I'm going to get that onto my needle. So now I have the yarn in the front, because I'm going to sew the front portion down first. So you can kind of open it up if you need to and get this back portion out of the way. And then you're going to take, and you can lay the ear flat like this, and then you want to make sure you're positioned correctly. So count again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to move it down. And also, you want to position the other side of the ear. Now the other side of the ear I have about midway with the nose. So if you need to move it up just slightly, you can do that as well. And then you want to count about, and I'm going to go about 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 to 6 away from the eye portion. And then once you have it positioned where you want, then you can take and sew it in place. I'm always going to double check. And then you just go in and out of the head. And you want to make sure that you don't sew the fabric. And then you just go in and out the front portion only. And you can reposition as needed. So I'm going to come up, make sure that I'm not going through the fabric if you used fabric on your ear. And then always make sure that you're positioned the way that you need to be with the ear. About 5 to 6 stitches away from the eye. Not the safety doll eye, but the ring around the eye. That's just how I liked my ears. So you may decide that you want your ears a little differently, and that's fine. Just make sure that your other ear is sewn on the exact same way. And then you can go back so you can take and go back in and out. So the initial sewing is the positioning, so that's the hardest part. Once you have it positioned where you want, then it's easy. The rest is easy. So this ear is the easier ear. The other ear is a little bit tougher because you need to make sure it's positioned in the exact same spot as this ear. So that ear will be a little bit more difficult. So then you tie your knot. Then I like to bury the knot in the ear. And that's because if you go into the body, sometimes it can come back up. So I prefer to bury my loose yarn end into the ear itself. Less likely for it to come out or become loose. Then after you sew the front, you're ready to sew the back portion. So you just kind of open up the back portion and then just sew it in place. Now here's a little trick that I used for the other ear. So you know that it's in line with the bottom of the eye, the portion that goes behind the eye. And it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches away from there. And then here in the middle it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the bottom it's a little bit longer, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So here I'm lining up with the bottom of the eye, and it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to lay the ear flat at that portion where I want the bottom of the ear to fall. And mine, yeah, that's about right where the half double crochet is. So I'm going to line it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have that portion lined up. So I'm going to go in at this portion, and then I'm going to come out where I want it at the top of the ear. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's in line with the other ear. And then once you're happy with where you want to come out, just come up with your tapestry needle at that point. So I'm about 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's in line with the other ear. And then just come up with your yarn and needle. And then you can reposition the ear, make sure it lines up, lay it flat, and pull the back portion out of the way. Then you can go into the ear at this point, just the front of the ear, and then hook it down. Make sure it's still lined up. And again, you want the center of the ear to be 5 away from the eye. So I'm going to, from the outer portion of the eye. So I'm just double checking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's where I want it. Then you can take and sew it in place in the front and the back. So then this is what it looks like when I'm finished. And I'm going to go ahead and sew the head to the body now. Oh, let me show you the back. So this is what the back looks like. The side on top. This is what it looks like with the round eyes. And with the glitter felt eyes. Now we're going to sew the head onto the body. So you want to use the same colored white yarn that you used for the bottom of the head. Just cut some of the yarn to sew. Then you're just going to take the body, and it doesn't matter which side. If you're not going to put anything on the bottom of the body, which I'm going to show you how to make the fur that goes on the bottom of the body and up towards the top of the body. So if you're doing that like mine, then it won't matter which side. If you're not doing that, then you want to leave the magic circle end on the bottom of the body and where we closed at the top of the body. Then line up the head, the bottom of the head, on top of the body, and then we're going to sew the head to the body. I take my tapestry needle and I start in the back of the body, and I line up where I finished off on the body with where I finished off on the head. Then just take your tapestry needle and your yarn, and you're going to go into the body just beneath the white portion on the head, and then go up into the head and then come out of the head, and then pull the yarn through. Make sure you leave a little loose yarn end for burying into your work. Then you're going to go back about a stitch away from where you came out on the head, go back into the head, and then down into the body, and then come out right where you first started in the body. As close to this stitch, if not the same stitch, as you can, and then come out. Then you can take and tie a knot. We're going to be covering this part with fur, so you don't have to worry if you see the white on the body. And then just reposition the head onto the body. Then you're going to take and go into the body, come up into the head and come out of the head. And then if you come out of the head, you go a stitch over on the head, and then come down into the body, and then come out of the body with your needle. Then you're going to go about a stitch over on the body, come up into the head. And don't worry if your stitches are spread apart, because we're going to be making several rounds of sewing. And you always just kind of reposition the head on the body to make sure that it's straight on the body. Then you're just going to go a stitch away on the head and then back into the body, and then come out of the body. And then if you come out of the body, so again, you'd make sure that your head is centered on top of the body. Always check your positioning. If you come out of the body, you go a stitch over on the body, go up into the head, and come out of the head. And you're just going to repeat this all the way around several times until the head is secured on the body. So when you're finished, the head should be secure on the body. And don't worry if you could see a little bit of this stitching with the white on the body, because we're going to be covering this portion with white fur. So that's why I used the white yarn to sew the heads, because otherwise you would see gray in the white portion. So this is how mine looks, and your head should be secure and not too wobbly. And in the back is where I tie my knot. And if it's a little wobbly, you can pull a little bit of the white down from the back of the head and sew it in place. And then once you've tied your knot in the back of the head, I usually go right where you tied the knot and come out anywhere on the head. So don't bury it into the body, because it may come out easier of the body. So just bury it right into the head. Go ahead and bury all of your loose yarn ends. If you have excess yarn that you used for sewing, save it because we're going to be sewing the white portion onto the belly. So this is what mine looks like after I'm finished. You can see that even when using the white thread down into the gray body, it still is barely noticeable. But even if yours are noticeable, don't worry. Like I said, we'll be covering it. Here you can see there's a little bit of thread under there. And then the head is nice and sturdy, which is what you want. Now I'm going to show you how to make the covering for the body. So now for the body fur, you can use your 6mm crochet hook. And the reason why you can use it is because you don't care if the holes are a little bit larger. There's no stuffing going to show through. So you can switch to your 6mm crochet hook at this time. And I'm using this white fur for the body. You can use whatever white fur that you want for your koala bear. So we're going to start with the magic circle. Just take your yarn, drape it across your 4 fingers, use your thumb to stabilize, drape the yarn around your 2 middle fingers twice, and hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. Take your crochet hook, go right through the 2 loops around the middle fingers, bring up a loop, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for a slip knot. Then place 6 single crochet into the magic circle, just like we've done before. Then you can take and close the magic circle. And again, we've done this before, so I'm not going to go extremely slow. Turn your work so that you're working in rounds. And you're going to place 2 single crochet into every stitch in the round. Until you have a total of 12 stitches in the round, and then come back. So now you should have 12 stitches in the round. And I just want to go over, because we have a larger crochet hook, you're not going to need as many increase rounds to increase the number of stitches in the round. So to cover the bottom of the body, you're not going to need, remember we had about 9 increase rounds for the body. You're not going to need that many for the white portion because we're using our 6mm crochet hook. So for those of you that already know how to make the increase rounds, I'm going to be making 5 increase rounds. So up to, chronologically, 1 single crochet into 5 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and get you started, even though we've done this before. You're going to be making 1 single crochet into the first stitch and 2 single crochet into the second stitch. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around, back to the yarn marker, 1 single crochet into 1 stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch, repeating that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. And remember, you just add 6 to your previous round to get your stitch count. Remember, the last round had 12 stitches. If you add 6 to that, you should have 18 total stitches after completing this round. Go ahead and move your yarn marker up, and then for the next increase round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and then repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. Then 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch, repeating that pattern all the way around. Then 1 single crochet into 4 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch, repeating that pattern all the way around. Then for the last increase round, make 1 single crochet into 5 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch, repeating that pattern all the way around. So now I'm all finished with the bottom portion, and the measurements are 4 inches by 4 inches. The stitch count is 42 stitches in the round. So now you can go ahead and remove your yarn marker, and you're going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. So go into that next stitch, yarn over, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. Go ahead and place your yarn marker right where you left off. Then you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next 19 stitches. So 1 single crochet into the next 19 stitches, and then come back. After you make 1 single crochet into 19 stitches, then you can make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. Then you're going to turn your work, and you're going to work back across. I have the wrong side facing me now, and I'm going to work back across towards the yarn marker. So you're going to chain 1, then make 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. So not counting that first chain 1, count your stitches, and you should still maintain a stitch count of 19. So I went ahead and removed my stitch marker, and I have a stitch count of 19. Then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and now I have the right side facing me. That chain 1 counts as your first stitch for this row, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and you're going to keep making 1 single crochet in every stitch. And when you finish this row, make sure you count the chain 1 on this row, and you should have a total of 19 stitches for this row. So now I have 19 stitches after completing that row, and this is where our initial chain 1 is on the end. We're not going to work into that stitch. So now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and this is where we're going to start the beautiful pattern that goes on the front of the koala, and it's known as the cobble stitch, and it gives a really pretty texture to the front of the design that's going to be on the front of your koala. I had used this design before for a baby blanket, and you can go to, it's a separate video tutorial called My Little Sweet Pea Baby Blanket, and it just turns into a really gorgeous baby blanket as well. So now you just turn your work, and we're going to go back across. So this first chain 1 counts as the single crochet for the first stitch, and you can see how directly below the chain 1 is the first stitch from the previous row. You're not going to work into that stitch. The chain 1 counts as the first stitch for this row. So you're going to work into the next stitch over, and we're going to make a double crochet into that next stitch. So you're going to yarn over, go into that next stitch, bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through 2 of the loops. You have 2 loops remaining, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the 2 remaining loops. Then in the next stitch you're going to make a single crochet. Then in the next stitch you're going to make a double crochet, and you're just going to repeat 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet all the way across to the end of the row. And you should still have 19 stitches when you're finished. So 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So it's a really easy but beautiful textured pattern that I like to use. in some of my crochet work. So one single crochet into the next stitch, one double crochet into the next stitch, and then just keep repeating this pattern all the way across, back to where you started. And remember, when you finish this row, you should have a total of 19 stitches. So now I've reached the end of the row, and I still have a total of 19 stitches, and I finished with a single crochet at the end of the row. So now, to move up to the next row, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And what you're going to do is, look at that beautiful textured look, cobblestone look. It's really gorgeous. I love the design. So now you want to keep the single crochets over the single crochet stitches and the double crochet stitches over the double crochet stitches from the previous row. So you're just going to repeat the previous row's stitches. So if you have a double crochet into the next stitch, you're going to, from the previous row, you're going to make a double crochet into that stitch. So the chain 1 counts as a single crochet to start the row. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, which should be the double crochet from the previous row, and make a double crochet for this row. Then the next stitch from the previous row is a single crochet. You're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch, and you're going to keep repeating the pattern, single crochet, double crochet, all the way across. And if you're doing it correctly and you made the previous row correctly, your stitches should be lining up. So I have a double crochet lining up with a double crochet from the previous row, single crochet lining up with the single crochet from the previous row, and when I finish this row, I should still have a total of 19 stitches. So go ahead, finish this row, and then come back. Now, isn't that just beautiful? I love the texture it creates, and it makes a really gorgeous baby blanket, like I said. So you can go to my little sweet pea video tutorial if you'd like to make a baby blanket using this cobblestone stitch. So now all you're going to do is just keep repeating that pattern until you have a measurement of 5.5 inches. And the reason why I say a measurement instead of rows is you can see that it's difficult to see the individual rows like you can see here. So just measure when you're finished with a measurement of 5.5 inches, then stop and come back, and then I'll tell you what to do next. So again, remember, you just chain 1, turn your work, and then make a double crochet over the previous row's double crochet, single crochet over the previous row's single crochet, and just keep repeating this pattern until you have a measurement of 5.5 inches from the start of the cobblestone stitches. So now I finished the rows, and it measures about 5.5 inches. I put the bottom portion underneath the body, and you also want to make sure that this front portion is centered with the face. So make sure that it's centered, and this is how it looks so far, but we're not finished yet. We still need to make the portion that goes around the koala, so I'm going to show you that next. Before I start making that other portion, I just wanted to point out that I have approximately 7 rounds from the neck to the front body portion. So now, after I finished my last row, and it measures 5.5 inches from where I started with this cobblestone stitch, the cobblestone stitch rows, now we're going to make a chain. So you're going to make a chain of 30. I'm just going to show you 4 of them. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for 1 chain, 2, 3, 4. So go ahead, finish a chain of 30, and then come back. After you finish your chain of 30, you're going to want to position the fur onto the body, but before we do that, let's go ahead and bury this loose yarn end on the wrong side. So remember that this is the wrong side of the work. And then just take your tapestry needle, put it onto that loose yarn end, and then you're just going to weave it through the wrong side of the work. And I like to go a couple of different directions. Usually it's easier. This style of yarn makes it sometimes catch. And then just trim it. Then you're ready to place the work back onto the koala. And don't worry about centering it yet, because we'll center it when we start to sew it in place. Right now we're not sewing it in place yet. Then you're going to take your chain that you made and wrap it around, and you're going to want to make a slip stitch to the top stitch of the front body on the opposite side. So you're going to take and make into that first stitch. We're going to slip stitch the chain to the opposite side of the front of the body. So this is where we started, the chain at the top of the front of the body, and we're slip stitching it to the opposite side. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through. Then you're going to turn your work so that your work is facing you like this. So we're going to work back across. So here's the front of the body. We just slip stitched the chain from the opposite side. And the reason why you want to do it this way is because we're going to make it smaller and smaller towards the top of the body, and it's going to be difficult to slip it on afterwards. So it's just easier for me, I found, to do it this way. So if you find an easier way to do it, you can do that. Whatever works to get this top portion up here and the front onto the front of the body. So now we're going to make the top portion of the fur. And now you're going to make a chain of 1. And then you're going to double crochet into the next stitch. So you can make a double crochet into the next stitch. And then single crochet into the next stitch. And you're just going to repeat the cobblestone stitch all the way around back to your first chain 1 for the round, and then come back. So now I just finished 49 stitches in the round, and you want to make sure that this back portion is not twisted. So make sure it's not twisted. And now we're going to make decrease rounds, or we're going to decrease the number of stitches in the round. So if you want to use a yarn marker, you can. I can actually tell that when I'm crossed over the body that I finished the round, but you can use a yarn marker if you want to. And then for this next round, you're going to make 1 single crochet. And again, make sure that the back portion is not twisted. Make 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then you're going to make a decrease stitch. So to make a decrease stitch or single crochet 2 stitches together, you're going to go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 for a decrease stitch. And you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to where you started. 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then your decrease stitch or single crochet 2 stitches together. Then repeat that pattern all the way around, back to where you started. So now I have a total of 36 stitches in the round, and this is what my work is looking like so far. Now we're going to do a cobble stitch round 1 to 1, so we're not going to be decreasing the number of stitches. You should still only have 36 stitches in the round when you complete this round. So then, and also again, just make sure it doesn't twist. It should be solid and not twisted. Then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then you're going to make a double crochet into the next stitch, and you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to where you started. 1 single crochet into 1 stitch, and then a double crochet into the next stitch. So keep repeating that pattern all the way around back to where you started. So now, once you get back to where you started, we're going to make another decrease round. So for this decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 2 stitches again, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. So yes, you're making 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then you're making a single crochet 2 stitches together. So go ahead and repeat that pattern all the way around back to where you started. So now you should have finished with 27 stitches in the round, and we're going to make our last decrease round, or our last round. And for this last decrease round, you're going to make 1 single crochet into 1 stitch, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then repeat that pattern all the way around back to where you started. 1 single crochet into 1 stitch, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around back to where you started. Then when you reach where you started, go ahead and make a slip stitch into the next stitch over. Just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew as much as you can. You're probably going to need more yarn to help sew down everything. But you can see how that just cinches it up nicely with the neck. Then what you're going to do is you're going to move the front. So you want to make sure that this front portion is in line and even centered with the face. And then the bottom portion will go and be sewn onto the bottom of the body. And what I do is I sew along the top of the ring in place to the body and the head. You can link it to the head if you want to. And then you just sew along the bottom border all the way around. And then I don't worry about sewing the center. You don't need to. And then for those that want a pouch, I make a separate pouch that I'm going to put on top. If you don't want to do that, you could leave an opening for the pouch if you wanted to, because actually I wouldn't recommend that, because you are going to be placing the legs and the arms. So if you want a pouch, I would recommend making a pouch for the top, and I'll show you how I do that for her. So go ahead and center and sew down the fur design onto your body, and then come back. So for mine, I just wanted to show you that I just kind of went and sewed the top portion. Just going in and out. And you want to make sure that there's no gray peeking through. So if you need to go up into the head and sew, you can do that too. Now you can set the body and the head aside while I show you how to make the arms and the legs. Now the arms and the legs are slightly different. So the only difference is with the back portion of the arms and the back portion of the legs. You can see how the legs are just slightly larger than the upper part of the arms. Other than that, both the arms and the legs are made the same way. The other difference is that for the male koala, I made the hands and the fingers larger than I did for the female koala. So that's an option. I'll show you that's the only difference is with the hand portion. So I will show you how to make the male hand, and then I'll show you where I stop for the female hand. And then also I'm going to be showing you the male fingers, and then I'll show you where I stop to make them slightly shorter for the female hands. As far as the hands and the legs, the feet, I made them the same size for the male and for the female. So if you choose to make the female smaller hand, then you would make the same size foot as well. So here you can see this is the male hand and foot. They're the same size. The only other difference is the foot has only one thumb, whereas the hand I made two. The other thing is, for some of my koalas, I used regular black colored yarn, and for some I did the glitter. I actually have fun with the glitter, so that's optional. You can use your glitter or the regular black yarn. On video tutorial, I'm going to show you with the glitter yarn. So make sure that you switch back to your 3.75 millimeter crochet hook, and then I'm going to start with the black colored yarn. And you're just going to take the black colored yarn, fold it over on itself to form a loop, take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Go ahead and yarn over, turn the hook upside down, go through the loop for your slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down and cinch the loop around your crochet hook. And then you're going to make a chain of 11. I'm going to show you the first 4 on video tutorial and then just let you finish. So we're going to be making a chain of 11. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead, finish your chain of 11 and then come back. Then after you finish your chain of 11, you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So just count back 1, 2, and in the second chain from the hook, go ahead and go into that stitch, bring up a loop, and then make a single crochet. And then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. And when you finish this row, which is your first row, this is just your starting chain. That's called a starting chain. And right now we're working on the first row, making 1 single crochet in every stitch. And when you finish this first row, you should have a stitch count of 10. And then come back. So then you're just going to go ahead and chain 1 to move up to the next row, then turn your work. That chain 1 counts as your first stitch for this second row. And you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next stitch over. And you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. And when you finish this second row, you should still have a stitch count of 10. Then to move up to the next row, you're just going to keep repeating chain 1, turn your work, make a single crochet into the next stitch, and 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. And you're going to keep repeating this until you have a total of 12 rows. Now if you're making the smaller hand, you're going to stop at 10 rows. So the smaller hand has 10 rows and the larger hand has 12 rows. So this is what mine looks like, and I have this. I'm making the larger hand on video tutorial, so you can see I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 rows, and again the smaller hand has 10 rows. And I'm just going to give you the measurement. So my larger hand is about 3 inches in size, and for the smaller hand, I'm going to give you that measurement. The smaller hand is approximately 6 centimeters for the smaller hand, if you're making the smaller hand. And they both are about 6 centimeters in width. So when you have the size that you want for the hand, then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work, because we're going to be crocheting the hand pieces together. So you have your black portion. Now you're going to make a gray portion the exact same size and the same way. So now, after you have your 2 pieces, you're going to place the black portion on top of the gray portion, and then you can tie a knot with the loose yarn ends. And then we're going to crochet the edges together. And we're going to leave an opening on the bottom. So make sure that you have it so that you're working along the sides of the rows. So here's the starting chain. And then we made our 12 rows. And we're going to work along the side of the 12 rows, the top, and back down the other side, but you need an opening at the bottom because that's the opening for the hand to put the stuffing into, and then we're going to create the arm. So make sure that it faces you this way with the black portion on top. Take your crochet hook, go right through each of the stitches, one black, one gray, and then you're going to bring up a loop with your gray colored yarn. You're going to be tucking your loose yarn ends into the inside of the hand, so just leave those free. Go ahead and chain 1, and then you can tie a knot with the loose yarn ends to make sure that it stays secure before we start to crochet. Then you're going to chain 1 again. Then you're just going to evenly space 1 single crochet into every stitch across, grabbing 1 stitch of the black and 1 stitch of the gray. Bring up a loop and make a single crochet, and you're effectively crocheting the 2 pieces together. So you just keep repeating that, 1 single crochet in every stitch along the edge until you reach the corner at the top, and then come back and I'll show you what to do around the corners. So this is how my work looks, and I've reached the top corner, and I'm going to place 2 single crochet into the same stitch at the corner on the side. Then you can turn to the top, go into the next stitch along the top. Sometimes it helps to jiggle. You'll see me jiggle my crochet hook to get into the stitch. Then just make 2 single crochet into the same stitch, and that's how you're going to crochet into the next corner too. And then when you get to this corner, just tuck the loose yarn ends in towards the inside as you're working around the corner. So go ahead, finish making a single crochet down the edge, across the top, and down the other edge, and then come back. So now this is what my work looks like on the one side, the gray side, and the one with the black glitter. Now you still have this opening at the bottom. You can tuck your loose yarn ends in. You can see I've already tucked mine towards the inside. Sometimes you'll need your tapestry needle to bring the knot into the wrong side. So now we're ready to start the arm. So right after you finish your last single crochet down the last edge, you're going to go ahead and turn your work, because we're going to be working in rounds around the opening. So you're going to chain 1, then go into the next stitch, and this time you're only grabbing a stitch with the black yarn, because remember, you don't want to stitch it shut. We're going to be making an opening, so only the black portion. Bring up a loop and make a single crochet, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch across. I'm just going to work this with you. Then when you reach the end, you're just going to work your single crochets around that knot on the end. And then resume into the gray portion. Just grab a stitch and just make 1 single crochet into each of those stitches. And then that should bring you back to where you started. So now I have approximately 21 stitches in the round, and we may be off by 1 stitch. You may be off by 1 stitch, I should say. So that's okay, don't worry. Now what we want to do is, with this second round that we're going to do, we both want to end up with 28 stitches for the round. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So now go ahead and get your yarn marker. I'm just using one of my scraps of yarn again. Place it right where you left off, and we're going to be making an increase round, and when we're finished with this increase round, both of us want to end up with 28 stitches. So you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches. And then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. And you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around, back to the yarn marker. 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. So for me, I ended up with 24 stitches, and I have 2 stitches remaining before the yarn marker. So I'm going to be making 2 single crochet into each of the 2 remaining stitches, so that I will have a total of 28 stitches in the round. So you can make, depending on how many stitches you have in the round, an increased stitch is when you make 2 single crochet into 1 stitch. So you're increasing by 1. So go ahead, increase where you need to end up with 28 stitches in the round. So for mine, I'm going to need 2 more increased stitches to end up with 28 stitches for the round. So now I have 28 stitches in the round. Now you can move the yarn marker up to where you left off. And now you're going to be making only 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 11 rounds. So 11 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. You're not going to remove the yarn marker, you're just going to leave it in place to keep track of your rounds, and each time you get to the yarn marker, you should still have 28 stitches in the round. So you're not increasing the number of stitches in the round, and you're not decreasing the number of stitches in the round. So now this is how your hand should look after you make one single crochet into every stitch for 11 rounds. Go ahead and take your yarn marker, move it up to where you left off. And now we're going to make an increase round. So for this increase round, you're going to make one single crochet into 3 stitches. And then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. And then you're going to repeat this pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. Now if you have any remaining stitches, just make 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches. So I ended up with no remaining stitches, and I have a total of 35 stitches in the round. Then you can take and move the yarn marker up, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 8 rounds. So 8 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch. So now after you finish your 8 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch, this is how your work should look. And you can go ahead and remove the yarn marker and go ahead and add your craft stuffing. Make sure that you get your stuffing into the hand as well. And you want to stuff it just right. Don't overstuff to where your crochet stitches are gaping. So you don't want that. So you can see how I added a little stuffing into the hand and into the arm. And then you can also add more craft stuffing as we close. So now go ahead and place your yarn marker right where you left off, and we're going to start our first decrease round. You're going to make 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around. 1 single crochet into 3 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around. So now I have 28 stitches in the round. You're going to take and move your yarn marker up, and then just make 1 round of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So 1 round with just 1 single crochet in every stitch. Then for the next decrease round is 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then single crochet 2 stitches together, repeating that pattern all the way around. Then I just added a little bit more craft stuffing in, and I have 21 stitches in the round at this point. I'm going to go ahead and move my yarn marker up, and then I'm just going to make 1 round of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 1 round. Then go ahead and move your yarn marker up, and for this next decrease round you're going to make 1 single crochet into 1 stitch, and then single crochet 2 stitches together. And then you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. Then you can remove the yarn marker, and we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together until we can't decrease anymore, and then we're going to slip stitch closed. So you just make single crochet 2 stitches together until you're almost closed. Then you can take and slip stitch closed. So I'm almost going to be slip stitching. This will be my last one. So now I want to slip stitch it closed. So to slip stitch closed, you're going to skip a stitch, go into the next stitch, and then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. And you're just going to keep repeating slip stitches all the way around until the leg is completely closed. Make 1 more. Then you can go ahead and finish off, just yarn over and just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. So now this is what my work looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and bury the loose yarn end. So you just take your tapestry needle or darning needle, place the loose yarn end through the eye of the needle, go right where you tied the knot and come out anywhere. Pull the loose yarn end through and then trim the loose yarn end. So you're going to need 2 of these arms, and before I start to show you how to make the fingers and the thumbs, I'm going to show you the differences for making the leg. So the leg is made the same way up until you get to this point. So I'm going to show you the differences now.